While so many businesses, from hospitality to fitness, have come to a standstill due to COVID-19, there are still a handful of industries in operation during this global pandemic. In addition to grocery stores and health systems, the construction industry is one less thought of area that's continuing day-to-day business. In most states, construction has been deemed an essential service by governors, since shelter and infrastructure are key components of society. Doing so has kept a major sector of the economy open and millions in work despite the ongoing pandemic. The U.S. construction industry alone is valued at $1.3 trillion in 2019 and is made up of more than 7 million employees, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Most of these jobs are likely to stick around despite the shuttered economy as demand for construction holds steady. Many of the projects that are currently taking place were already planned and financed more than a year ago. And with millions less commuting to work each day, government construction crews can now take advantage of the fairly empty roadways to fix crumbling highways and pothole-ridden streets. And as spring comes into full bloom, builders can get to work constructing new high-rises and developments with minimal weather delays.
It definitely seems like there's a huge need for carpentry right now. I know that the projects that my company is working on, they're always looking for more people to work for them because they're just expanding.
That's Jocelyn Lipscomb, a carpenter who works for a construction company based out of Columbus, Indiana. Lipscomb is also a member of the Carpenters Local Labor Union 301, which covers central Indiana. She says that back in March, she somewhat expected her company to temporarily close, which some construction companies are choosing to do.
We had fully expected to be shut down. A big part of it is that we are a government project, but they've taken a lot of precautions. There's been a lot of hand sanitizers been installed in different places. People are wearing masks.
More so, these construction companies are enforcing social distancing measures by mandating a span of 6 feet between workers and rotating different crews throughout a build-out. And it's not just typical construction projects like roads and housing being pursued right now. One of the projects that carpenters within Local 301 recently completed was the construction of a temporary structure outside of a local hospital. The new wing provides testing and triaging of possible coronavirus patients, so those who do test positive can be separated for treatment before entering the main hospital. Lipscomb says it's work like this and the ever-changing nature of the job that keeps her interested in the field. She originally graduated from Indiana University with a degree in kinesiology. However, after graduation, she was unsure of pursuing a career within her major, so decided to become a bartender while she figured out a different path.
A few of my regulars had asked me to help them do some residential work, and so on the side I was helping them with that, and then they mentioned that maybe I should try and get into the Carpenters Union. And so I actually knew one of the superintendents for one of the companies in town, so I got in touch with him, and he set me up with the person I needed to get into the apprenticeship program, and here I am.
As a woman within the industry, Lipscomb is one of the few. Only 9% of construction workers today are women. In her role, Lipscomb has only worked with about 6 or 7 women overall. So while other industries are making big strides to diversify, why is construction lagging so far behind?
The industry is starting to recognize, and some of it is kind of helping them recognize as well. I think it's twofold. You have some who are recognizing it, and some that just kind of need a little bit more help to recognize it. When we look at the working population, when we look at the trend of just our country, it is growing more and more diverse. And so when you have a working population that doesn't look like the industry, but the industry still needs to go forward, then it's the writing on the wall that, okay, well, in order for us to continue to thrive and to be sustainable, we have to diversify. And so it's being able to understand it, to recognize that, to own the fact that things do need to change. And I think that's where we're trending right now. And part of that is just the pressures that are coming.
That's Paul Robinson, the founder and CEO of Construct Reach, a company focused on workforce development within the construction sector.
We create formalized programs that take into account a younger, diverse perspective, a younger population that increases not only the affinity for the industry, but the affinity for their company, put them in position to create an environment that welcomes and takes into account a younger population, and creating an environment to where they can thrive. And so as we are kind of on the front lines promoting and engaging and connecting with a younger, diverse population, simultaneously we're working with companies to create cultures that promote diversity.
Robinson specifically points to the lack of women in today's construction workforce as an example of a culture that can be traced back to the traditional gendered beginnings of the industry itself.
When you look at, historically speaking, that physical labor, the hands-on, the building things, the grit and the grind, if you will, that was relegated to a man's role. And of course, we've seen things progress over time, and women begin to move into the marketplace and do pretty much everything that a man would typically do, but we just haven't seen that same trajectory, if you will, that same rate of change.
Robinson graduated from Kansas State University with a degree in construction management, and after completing college, worked for Target's own in-house construction department for a number of years. In his career, he's become an advocate for women, minorities, and those from lower-income families who hope to gain access to a growing industry with greater opportunities. For women specifically, Robinson says the notion that women can only be sign holders or helpers is another outdated perception that the industry needs to change. By training more women for specialized hands-on roles within construction, it breaks this stereotype and allows for a greater number of talented workers to enter the industry.
Women can do what men can do within that industry, and so it's being able to bring visibility to that. And there's some who are doing it, and I think for us, it's trying to highlight them and elevate them so that other young girls that are coming up in that pathway or may be interested can actually see that, yeah, even though I don't see a lot of women within that particular pathway, or even though I haven't seen any, now I see some. Now I'm getting exposure. Now I can identify with someone who did it. And so maybe that is for me now. When you think about doing something for decades or generations, being able to adapt to this change, it does. It takes work. Maybe it's casting this vision or it's reiterating the importance over and over again.
Robinson says that the field does have a way to go, but it is possible to carve out a career in construction no matter who you are.
For me, the reality of it, I don't think there's any secret coming from someone who's a minority is, can I really succeed in this industry? Will there be equal opportunity for me to grow and for me to have a long-lasting, sustainable career? So, those were just honest thoughts that I had going into the industry just because of the perception of the industry that's out there. You are coming from a different demographic and you are a minority. It could be very challenging for you to actually succeed in the industry. And so for me, those were some very honest feelings that I did have.
Currently, 5.8% of construction workers are African American and less than 2% are Asian. But there are companies working to change this. One of the leading names paving the way for greater inclusion in the industry is Skanska USA, which is based out of New York and known for its people-focused culture and professional mentoring and development for women and minorities in construction. While the industry has its challenges, the benefits are widespread. Construction jobs, especially those that are unionized, offer great benefits, pay, and upward career mobility.
You could come in making $50,000, right? And of course, it varies over specific trade. And of course, going into project management, if you're coming from the school route, it could be the same way. But then it's just, there's a lot of opportunities to grow as well. And so when you think about that, especially on the skilled trade side, that is a lot more money than coming out of college, because one of the things that you don't take into account is how much debt you may acquire, right, as you're going through college and trying to pay for that education. So it's allowing them to get exposure to what they can do right now, but connecting the dots to what they can be. And I think that's important to young people and giving them that perspective on what their career could look like.
As of late April, 26 million Americans have filed for unemployment, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. With millions looking for work, essential industries like construction could be a good place to search.
There's still over half of the industry saying that there's a need for more talent coming through and coming into the industry so that they can continue to build the projects that are waiting them. And so, it's just understanding that that's the kind of the nature of the industry where you have these ebbs and flows.
To find out more about our guests, Jocelyn Lipscomb and Paul Robinson, as well as job resources within the construction industry, including ConstructReach, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Viewpoints Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
But as you grow more into adulthood, at least for me, there was more regret, more guilt, more feeling remorse for how I acted the night before.
Acclaimed chef Ileana Reagan opens up about her past, present, and future. Then,
my goal is to save over $1 million in my 30s.
One woman's journey to become financially independent by 32. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.